I'm just going to do an abbreviated version here so we have multiple maximum time. But Karen actually was the Director of Health Promotion and Wellbeing at the University of Louisville for about 11 years. She implemented multiple programs while there, including a resilience framework for students, core mindfulness courses, retreats and drop-ins and relax and refocus sessions. She led silent meditation retreats, Slow Down at the Speed, where art meets mindfulness. So that would be the Speed Art Museum where that was happening.
Still is.
And still is, that's right. And actually many of these programs have been adopted and taken up by others and still existing even after Karen retired in 2018. Now she does all kinds of teaching at places like the choral mindfulness, or teaching choral mindfulness at all kinds of places like the Earth and Spirit Center Meditation School, Youth Build, Waterfront Botanical Gardens, and many other nonprofits in the area. And then she's also at the College of Education, periodically teaches students as an adjunct professor in their 14-week course on education. Prior to all of this work locally here in the University of Louisville and in the city of Louisville more generally, she was the director at the School of Medicine residency training for as the Director of Healthcare Services at the Healing Place Residential Recovery Program. Some of these names are very long. And then Karen is also a graduate of San Diego State University, completed her Master's of Public Health degree in Community Health Promotion and Nutrition Science at Loma Linda University in California in 1981. She is a registered dietitian, nutritionist, and her certifications include core mindfulness teacher, trainer of teachers, mindfulness-based eating awareness training, master nap trainer, and food for life teacher. And I clearly need the master nap teacher one myself. So, without further ado, let me turn this over to Karen.
Thanks, Ryan. So just so we don't start out in a state of confusion, we need to update my bio because the reference to Koru, K-O-R-U, has been changed. So MIEA is now the new name for this curriculum that I do know what I do. Many days, anyway. I am so happy to be here. I believe that we have brought into you the presentation a tool for positive leadership, particularly flexibility, that is going to be useful. It's extremely useful in my own life, so that's why I'm compelled, to share it. So there will be brief background on, why we might want to tap into the power of emotional awareness. Have any of you seen the movie Inside Out? 1 and 2? All right, so I hope you like that. It was a positive reaction to Inside Out at work. The focus is really going to be on the presentation and the practice of this R.A.I.N tool. Did you know R.A.I.N already? Okay, one person, okay. So I'm going to read a poem. It's on the screen. If you like to close your eyes, then you can just close your eyes and listen. And then this is kind of by way of getting into a contemplative state, if you will. Okay. So this poem is written by a woman named Dana Fouts. It only takes a reminder to breathe, a moment to be still, and just like that, something in me settles, softens, makes space for imperfection. The harsh voice of judgment drops to a whisper, and I remember again that life isn't a relay race, that we will all cross the finish line, that waking up to life is what we were born for. As many times as I catch myself charging forward without even knowing where I'm going, that many times I can make the choice to stop, to breathe, and be, and walk slowly into the mystery. Thank you, Dana Fouts. Waking up to life is what we were born for. That is one of my favorite things to remind myself of. So I'd like you, all of you, in your own minds, just to pause for a moment and just reflect on what do you already know about mindfulness and emotion. I'm using term emotional intelligence. I know it may not have some of the validity that we might prefer, but it's kind of a proxy term, particularly in the literature, for this capacity for self-awareness in the workplace. So please accept this as, that intention. And then, what are you curious about learning today? So just for a moment, think about that and reflect in your own mind. So turn to somebody next to you, and if you don't have to share, but if you'd like to share, what are you curious about learning today? Just share at your table. All right, if you would bring that to a close. I did want you to have some ice broken between you and the people at your table, if you don't already know each other. There will be a few more opportunities for you to share, reflect, and share. We only have about 45 minutes together, and I know I always resource my presentations. I know that. So I will do my best to allow time for you to process as well. I do practice my meditation practice is in the tradition of Thich Nhat Hanh as a teacher. It's called the Plum Village tradition. And that's just, I am a practicing meditator and a teacher of that. And Thich Nhat Hanh is very kind of known for pithy consolidations of some of these ancient wisdoms. And he tells us if you can be at peace in the face of reality, then we have a chance. And this was a man who was, essentially fled for his life from Vietnam during the war and took refuge in southern France at Plum Village. And he was able to say, if I can be at peace in the face of reality, then I have a chance. So we're going to be leaning in a little bit more to a reality of inside out at work. So I'm just going to use this brief next couple of minutes, and some of you know this shtick that I do, because I do it all day long in my own life. And it is a process very intentional for making a transition. And I like to say it's making a transition from getting here to being here. Because there is this phenomena, you probably have noticed, that you might be in a room and your brain is completely somewhere else. Planning what you have to do at 10 o'clock, or rehashing an argument from last night. Grocery list, I don't know. We do that stuff all the time. So this is a very intentional practice. I call it settling in, to transition from getting there to being here. And again, I will guide you through it. You feel free to close your eyes, leave them open, soft gaze, your choice. And I use a tone bowl just so you know it's starting and you know when it's ended. So those tones are auditory invitations to you to just simply pay attention. Just using your own senses of awareness to get anchored to this room that you're in right now. And you have a very specific purpose for being here. You have curiosity about the topic, and let's call that your intention, some form of intention. So if you would bring to mind, what is your intention for this next 45 minutes or so? And it could be as simple as, I intend to pay attention. I intend to do my best to be here. I intend to be curious. And with that intention in mind, then let your awareness just find your feet. Drop your awareness. You don't have to look at them. You just now have full awareness of what your skin feels like on the socks. Other sensations in your feet as you're held very, very safely and securely by gravity. Same with your seat on the seat. Getting a sensation of being anchored in this room. Some of you are already noticing your hands, so let your awareness shift to your hands. Temperature, sensations. This is all very intentional, bringing yourself to this space. If you can easily find your breath, you can also use that as a sensational or sensate anchor to where you are. No particularly to form a breath, just what does your breath feel like right now? So some of you may be Mary Oliver fans as well. So this is a very brief line from one of her poems. Attention without feeling is only a report. And openness and empathy is necessary if the attention is to matter. So the attention that we're going to bring today to this, very purposefully, listen to this, we will, spark curiosity by exploring the implications for building emotional awareness to increase leadership flexibility and effectiveness when you're dealing with difficult situations. That's kind of front and center here. In this process, we will identify barriers to positive leadership that arise when dealing with difficult situations that include the inevitable, challenging emotions. What are the barriers when we go into those situations without the power of emotional awareness? We're going to learn the R.A.I.N tool process. We're going to practice the process. We're going to reflect and share on that process. I'm going to give you a lot of resources, and then we'll be done. That's the purpose. Sound reasonable? Okay. So let's just talk a little bit about why would you bring a tool for working with emotions and feelings into the discussion about effective leadership. And this was a very interesting conversation that I had with Ryan and Rami and others. So we're really trying to address what are the problems that this tool might address. In that abundant set of tools that you have on the Positive Leadership website, all of them have this intention that they're helping address problems. Okay, so here's some examples of problems that might be addressed by having this skill. Exhaustion and fatigue, time urgency, and then this companion that is often anxiety. Sounds like we don't have enough time. Relationships with coworkers, spillover emotions from relationships out of work that come into work with us, vice versa. Here's a little bit more hardcore from business data. Businesses that are in transformation have a 70% failure rate if that transformation or that transition does not include some self-awareness about the emotional factors that are coming into these decisions. And then also we have noted that creating trust within temporary teams, lots of project-based work, which seems to be trending a lot. Those are some of the problems that allowing emotions to be acknowledged. I am not saying that you're going to learn how to openly dump your feelings on everyone. That is not what we're talking about here. Self-awareness in a contemplative mindfulness frame means that when I'm self-aware of my feelings, then I get to choose where they're true, how they're affecting my thinking, So awareness of emotions means I am going to show up more capable with better capacity for being in relationship at work or at home, okay? This is not about learning how to articulate our feelings and dump them. So there may be other problems at work, that are coming to mind that would be helped if there was an acknowledgement of capacity to identify emotions and realize how they affect my thought process. Somebody, a couple months ago, I was talking to somebody about their work environment, and she said, the problem is everybody here is nice, really nice, but it also means that nobody is giving their real opinions or addressing some of the most difficult problems we need to solve. So while there's not a lot of open conflict, people are very frustrated behind closed doors, and we're not making progress. Does anybody resonate with that person? So many people are surprised to find that emotional awareness can solve this too nice problem. It's not about avoiding conflict or holding back our emotions. It just enables us to be more honest and transparent when we have processed our emotions through a filter of self-awareness, right? It really seems to be necessary for creating a culture of growth and trust, which is one of the top priorities of positive leadership. So authentic, trust-based communication, rather than a facade of niceness, is essential for an organization's long-term growth and success. So I'm just going to flash a bunch of stuff here just to drop the idea that there is evidence. I'm not just making this up because it sounds like a nice woo-woo California thing to say. There's a lot of evidence out there. Yeah, I am from California, by the way. I own that. But I've been here 34 years, so I've been reality checked a lot. California is not the whole world. But we still have an ocean out there. So anyway, this flexibility tool that we call R.A.I.N, again, there's just a few highlights from a recent Search Inside Yourself webinar that I attended online, of course, that I think illustrate the imperative for tapping into this power of emotional awareness. And if you don't know Search Inside Yourself Global, it was the program that was put into Google, oh my gosh, 15, 20 years ago, something like that, when they realized that they didn't have a too nice environment, they had a hardcore, cutthroat, work is your life environment, right? And they paid some of these most fabulous meditation teachers, like Mirabai Bush and this guy Mark Lesser, to write a curriculum on meditation for them. And they thought it was so clever, they called it Search Inside Yourself, Google. And it took off like wildfire. They had waiting lists. I mean, these hardcore engineers and other folks at Google were saying, yeah, we need this. Now, it went way beyond that. It's now a spin-off. It's Search Inside Yourself is an international organization. But they still do a lot of really nice research, around why businesses should care about emotions. That was the name of this webinar. And, provocative things like everything at work is an emotion thing. That's an interesting conversation to start. And some of the implications that came out of this webinar were emotional intelligence, again, please, proxy for self-awareness, is a base requirement for high-performing teams. Base requirement. I come up from a public health background, master's in public health, and in my career, I saw this over and over and over again, that a base requirement for changing systems, which is what public health people do, change, refine, modify systems, a base requirement for high-performing teams was self-awareness and the increasing resilience capacity. Another implication, emotional intelligence is critical for leaders who are trying to navigate increasing complexity. I don't think workplaces are getting simpler, right? More and more complexity and layers. And sensing and acting on emotions is critical for the transformation success. Sensing and acting informed by emotions. So just to clarify emotional intelligence, because I've used this term, it was been around since the 1990 when two researchers coined this term. It's become popular because psychologist Daniel Goleman wrote a book. He used it as a title, Emotional Intelligence. And there's still an ongoing teasing out of, how much is it evidence informed and how much is it not. But here's the point. Understanding others starts with understanding yourself. And this is what Daniel Goleman, who you may not know, he's a PhD psychologist researcher primarily in meditation. The basic for this system is self-awareness, emotional self-awareness and awareness of biases, right? And the self-awareness and the contemplative practice often gets lost in this. And of course, part of self-awareness then allows self-regulation, how we can focus, have attention, emotional regulation. That's what we're talking about in R.A.I.N. Okay. So here's an example that's very common. I mean, public health people love process diagrams like this. Here's a best practice. You have a vision and goals and plan. You get engagement and communication. You execute it and you monitor, and then you sustain and optimize it. What's missing from the process?
Humanity.
Right. What is being ignored? Yeah, people are very unpredictable and reactive, right? So they're all cognitive processes. There's no identification that there will be human interaction, which is always messy. And it subscribes to this idea that there are two competing systems, that our head and our heart, again, proxy for emotions, they're two separate things. When I teach meditation at Earth and Spirit Center and other places. I use the term body-mind. I don't say body and mind and body. Body-mind, because neurobiologically we're so co-wired, if you will, that really this is an old-fashioned notion that I can be a strictly cognitive being. Sorry. So again, just to finish up this theme of this is the basis of, this is the rationale, if you will. When we're working simultaneously, there's always an interplay of emotions and then our decisions and choices, right? So the emotions, we don't want to be driving it, but they are informing our decisions and choices. It almost seems self-evident, right, when we talk about like this. And again, in this transformation, some of the data that's coming out is when emotions as a source of data are included, the transformation success has this trajectory. When inclusion of emotions as a data source are not there, transformation failure. The likelihood of increasing performance just past some kind of a turning point, now like the sustaining part of that best practices, if you spot negative emotions early, you have 107%, according to the study, of sustaining that turning point. If you co-create solutions, another dynamic. Focus on emotions within the change process, you have a 314% chance of sustaining, as opposed to other systems that do not allow that as a legitimate data source. Just by mention of explanation again, this is a process that I always include when I'm teaching meditation, because it's language. It's language for feelings at the most basic level. We have very complicated nervous systems, but one way about thinking about my emotional reactivity is activation zones. So if you're in comfort zone, hopefully you have some comfort zones that you know what they feel like, right? Many times it's a favorite place, a favorite chair, favorite people, favorite foods, predictable. And then we also have this really wonderful place we call stretch zone. And what's wonderful about it is this is where we challenge and learn. We don't learn in our comfort zone, right? We restore and take refuge, but in our stretch zone, and I hope this is what you are in right now, then we also have this reactivity that we call overwhelm, and for some people, they get really panicked, high anxiety attacks, and then some people shut down. They go numb, right? So very simplistic model, but I think it's useful to have language when we're talking about emotions of what zone am I in. And one of the advantages of having emotional awareness, is I can sense at that point when I'm given permission to, take emotions as data points, I can sense if I am moving out of challenge and heading towards the brink of overwhelm, where I know I say really unfortunate things, where I get angry, where I blame people. That's what happens in overwhelm. Is this making sense? Okay. I hope that language is useful. Bottom line, and from all the neuroscientific literature that talks about mindfulness, the bottom line is this. People who study the science of neuroplasticity and this capacity of neurosystems to change. The brain structures and biochemical responses can be reorganized with practice. So when I was in undergrad and graduate, I was a non-traditional learner, so I went back to undergrad at age 24. And so I was in graduate school about age 28, 29. And we were told that our brains were done developing around 24. So I'm going back to the university at age 24 thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to navigate this, right? That wasn't true. That was unfortunate publishing of not true. It was limited knowledge of what this capacity that we call neurobiology. But it has to be with regular practice. Because if what we're regularly practicing is negativity, power, living in overwhelm all the time, if that's what we practice, that's what our neurosystem is really good at. So the regular practice that we're talking about is practicing emotional awareness without reactivity and other practices. So mindfulness really simply is a state or quality of being aware, its most simple definition. And mindfulness meditation is what we practice in order to live more often in a state of awareness. And all of the mindfulness meditation practices are like building mindfulness muscle. And they're like mindfulness kettlebells, right? And they all train the body-mind for resilience. This is what's so beautiful. The R.A.I.N practice really is a meditation practice. And for those of you who have a meditation practice, you will recognize that the R and the A are one of the most common first parts of meditation practice. We're just getting stable enough so I'm hanging out in my challenge stretch zone, not reactive zone. So the number one thing that we're talking about here is when I get body-mind stability and self-regulation, then I have less reactivity, less likely to respond to fear. And the upside, more creativity, more ease. So let's take a deep breath. I'm going to read you a poem. That was a lot of info. So as a segue to now the practice, this poem is by Martha Postlethwaite, called The Clearing. Do not try to save the whole world or do anything grandiose. Instead, create a clearing in the dense forest of your life and wait there patiently until the song that is your life falls into your own cupped hands and you recognize and greet it. Only then will you know how to give yourself to this world so worthy of rescue. So I would like to suggest to you that what we're going to lean into now, this R.A.I.N meditation practice, is a way of clearing a space in the busy, maybe sometimes bramble, weeds, dense forest of our lives. It helps us break a trail through that dense forest of anxiety and other challenging, difficult emotions. We're seeking clarity and self-compassion with this practice. There's a cliche, our issues are in our tissues. Have you heard that? Yeah, and the truth is that, memories, stored memories are stored with in the emotional state that we experience them with, right? And so when we get into situations that maybe were negative in the past, if our issues are stored like that, we might react to a situation based on a memory rather than what is really happening right now. So we really want this capacity to see clarity about what is happening right now, right? So this R.A.I.N practice is considered an embodied practice because the process does invite you to become aware of some body sensations that may have names like anger, anxiety, fear, but what's the body feel like when that emotional state is happening? This is not therapy. Y'all, I have a master's in public health. This is not therapy. I know my boundaries really well. But it certainly might be challenging. I hope it keeps you in the stretch zone. So there are so many different versions of R.A.I.N. So you indeed have a printed with permission copy of Tara Brach's script. It's in your packet. And it is the most basic explanation of R.A.I.N. So we just made a little slightly modified version, and it's in your packet. There's lots of hyperlinks in this PowerPoint slide deck. But if you do want to go into Tara Brach's website, she's probably the richest free resource for this. I mean, she writes books. I mean, her beautiful book, Radical Compassion, the whole thing is on the practice of R.A.I.N. So she writes books, but she also has this stuff public access. Lots of guided practices. Some are 9 minutes, some are 20 minutes, some are 3 minutes. So there's many versions of how to use these 4 basic steps. And the beauty of it, and the reason that I gravitated towards it, because it's so simple. Right? And so R.A.I.N, the R is you simply recognize what's going on. I shouldn't say simply. You recognize what's going on. And then this is what you all recognize if you're meditators. You allow the experience to be there just as it is. And this is, for many of us, the hardest part. This concept of acceptance. Doesn't mean I condone it. Doesn't mean I like it. Doesn't mean I'm going to perpetuate it. But this appears to be the experience just as it is. Then we go beyond maybe some of the more traditional practices where you recognize that and you come back to your anchor. In this practice, we're going to lean in and investigate, actually, with interest and care. What is that feeling? What thought is it associated with? What am I believing has generated that? But it's done systematically. And then the 4th step is we nurture with self-compassion. So we do this little bit of work, and then we give ourselves some ease. That's the 4 steps. Again, this is not therapy, but it might feel challenging. You can experiment with exploring R.A.I.N as a standalone meditation. I mean, you could actually listen to a narration and bring it into your meditation for 15, 20 minutes. Or you can move through the steps whenever challenging feelings arise. So I was doing R.A.I.N on my way into the building this morning. My gut's churning. I'm thinking they're not going to like it. I have too much material. Anyway, all of those feelings were very real. Feelings are real, but not always true. Have you noticed that? Especially the narrations that go with them. So I'm going to guide you through R.A.I.N, and then I'll give you a few more resources to take with you. So are there any questions? Let me pause before I take you through the practice of the tool, the R.A.I.N practice. Really? Yeah.
One that we discussed a little bit is that when you're in that outer circle of
Overwhelm.
overwhelm, how to have enough self-awareness to move yourself or to accept it and then move
Mhm.
to the different stuff.
Thank you for that question. Right. It may have sounded like, tough luck, there you are. No, thank you for asking so I can clarify. So when we are in overwhelm and we have enough self-awareness to know I'm in overwhelm, then we do very, very intentional things like open our eyes, stand up, leave the room, right? And you might find yourself in a meeting where you're overwhelmed and you can't do any of those things, right? You can't leave the room. But you can do other anchoring self-awareness. You can bring your awareness to your feet, your hands, your breath, right? Those are all self-regulation. If you know how to diaphragm breathe, or you engage the parasympathetic nervous system for the relaxation response, you start breathing with your diaphragm, get a little extra vagus nerve support for what you're trying to do, right? Lots and lots of resources to do that. Such a good question. Okay. Anybody else? You ready to practice? Okay, I have a script. I'm not going to just make this up. And I'm going to treat this as a meditation practice just so that you'll hear the tone when it's done. Okay, primarily. So. So take a moment to find yourself into a way of sitting that feels supportive. And this is going to be about 10, 15 minutes. So this is a good time to fidget and adjust your posture so that you're as comfortable as you can be in the chairs. So you want to be comfortable and at ease, but you also are aiming for being alert. So again, you can close your eyes if that helps you go inward, and or you can just find a soft gaze, something that's not going to move. So we're going to begin by simply breathing, which is always a nice place to start. So you're going to extend your breath so that the in-breath is long and deep, filling your chest and lungs. And indulge in a slow out-breath, feeling the sensation of the breath as it leaves your nostrils. Again, inhaling a deep, full in-breath. And a slow, even out-breath. There might be a sense of letting go. You're going to take my invitation seriously, that you really can let go. That in this practice, in this room, there's support, and you can just let go. Once again, inhale deeply. And a slow out breath. More of that relaxing kind of inward letting go permission. And then just let your breath come back to whatever a natural rhythm is for you. Being aware that you are here. Your senses are awake. You're awake. Now, take a moment to scan through your body and sense what might want to let go just a little bit more. As a suggestion, maybe feel your face, let your eyes soften. We often hang onto rigid positions in our face and jaw. Can the shoulders relax a little bit more? You're sensing a quality of presence that you are being here. So from this perspective, from this sense of presence, I'm going to now invite you to scan your life. Just kind of like your most present life, not the whole thing. And notice if there's a repeating situation going on that brings emotional reactivity. Notice if there's a repeating situation going on that brings up emotional reactivity. That might be self-judgment, like in some way you kind of turn on yourself. Some ways that critical voice takes over. So you're scanning and discerning where you might be turning on yourself. Please folks, do not land on something that is linked with trauma. That's not going to serve you well in this very brief meditation. Maybe something to do with a relationship with others. Could be something at work. Maybe it's your health. Something that is a reoccurring situation that brings emotional reactivity. Now, when you land on something, bring to mind the situation that most illustrates it. Something recent that occurred where those strong, challenging emotions came up. You can visualize where you are when it's happening. You can bring more presence by sensing the room or the outside space where you were most recently when the emotions came up. If there's another person or persons, you can see them, their faces, what they might be saying. So inviting you to reconnect with the actual experience. Our bodies can actually remember certain experiences quite vividly. And ask yourself, what's the worst part of this for me? What's the hardest part of this for me? So we're going to use the R of R.A.I.N, which is you're pausing and recognizing. Recognizing what's happening in this memory. And notice what is most dominant in this emotionally charged memory. It may be that inner critical voice. There may be feelings that you call fear, anxiety, agitation, shame, distress. It may just be more general body sensations, maybe numbness. So part of recognizing is a mental whisper, mentally noting that feeling, like you might name it, anger, fear, self-judgment. Just a mental whisper, give it a name. And then we shift into the A for allowing. It's just what it sounds like, that you let whatever is coming up be there. You're in a safe room, supported room. You know, you're bringing up something that may have felt overwhelming when it happened. But these are the waves of the moment, and it's like saying, this belongs, this belongs. I'm not arguing with reality, this belongs. We acknowledge reality without pushing it away. Again, you're not condoning and pretending to like it. You mentally whisper something like, yes, this too. And again, reminding you the first two steps, the R and the A, are basic meditation practices. And we're going to now shift into territory that is often, quote, off limits in breath-focused stability. practices. And we call this the investigation, which is a primarily somatic, meaning you're going to investigate the sensations of feeling in your body with curiosity and kindness. Bring your interest to it, that interest that you showed up with this morning. The question is, how is a feeling showing up in me? And as another way in, you might ask yourself, what am I believing right now? What am I believing right now? Am I believing that I've failed? That I've lost control of the meeting? Am I believing that others will reject me or not respect me? What am I believing in that reactive memory? So a belief might come easily for you, and if it doesn't, if you're not sure what that belief, no worries. Whatever comes up, see if you can go to where the feelings are strongest now in your body. So, for example, if you're feeling that you're a failure or flawed or not up for a challenge, how does that feel in your body without words? Where is it? The throat, the chest, the belly? So here's an option to assist yourself identifying that. You could put your hand on the place that you feel it most strongly. Throat, chest, belly, shoulder, head. It's as if you're inviting whatever is there to come forward for further investigation. Make sure you're breathing. You're breathing with this. Let your posture express what you're feeling. You're finding your way into your body as a source of information. A source of information about where you feel vulnerable. Again, that question, what's the worst part of this for me? And then feel that in your body. Breathing with what's there. You are in a supportive space. The last part of investigation is to sense. What is this part of me that feels vulnerable? And what does it need most? What does it want me to be with it? If you could have anything from the world or your highest self right now, what would it want? Would it want to be seen, to be valued, to be accepted, to be forgiven? What flavor of love and care would provide the most comfort and nourishment right now? And as we feel into that, we're transitioning into the N of R.A.I.N, which is nurture. You're letting yourself witness and listen from your most wise heart. Sense that part of you that you need to remember or trust. See if you can offer it some message of care. Again, you might put your hand on your heart, tenderly communicating presence and tenderness. And even if you don't feel up for that, just go through the motions. Send a message that you think will be most comforting. Something like, you're enough. Trust your goodness. You are seen. You are valued. This is a way we're offering self-compassion. Knowing that even if you're going through the motions, there's some part of you that wants to be able to hold yourself in true affection. very difficult to offer to yourself and call on some, if it is very difficult to offer this to yourself, call a friend, call in a larger source, like a grandparent, teacher, spiritual teacher, your dog. You're imagining that loving from a certain being or the quality of interbeing. It's flowing into you through your hand to that vulnerable place. And the final part of this practice is called After the Rain. This is where you sense the quality of essence and presence that has emerged, allowing a bit more space, more tenderness. It may be a very tiny degree, or it might be quite profound. Whatever it is, notice the shift from when you started as angry or self-judging or shamed. What would your experience be like if you really trusted the notion that nothing is wrong with you? So please take the next couple moments to rest in this spacious, kind awareness, knowing this is the innermost truth of what you are. The last part of what I would like to share with you is primarily resourcing. I've got a lot of PowerPoint slides that just highlight resources that you have in your packet and that will also be part of the toolbox, the most concise Tara Brach prompts. But I'm just really wanting to give you all, if you want, the opportunity very, very briefly to turn to somebody next to you. If you wish, you don't have to do this, but maybe in very brief or even one word reflection of what you noticed during the RAIN practice. It's, this is what you noticed during the practice. Very different than, what did you think about that? What did you notice during the practice? You want to do that? Okay. Yeah, and it's going to have to be brief because we're almost out of time. Sorry about that. But anyway, I wanted you to get the practice. So if you want to do that, otherwise you can just sit there and stretch them. So if you feel like you were gypped, that wasn't enough share time, this might be a reminder to you that one of the options for the RAIN practice is to have a RAIN partner. And I've had a RAIN partner, we just get together in Zoom for many years. And again, because there's so many resources, there actually is a resource on the Tara Brach site of how do you practice with a R.A.I.N partner. So that may appeal to some of you, because every time I do the practice, it's different depending on how my life informs what I show up with. So after the R.A.I.N, I find it useful to do some mindful movement or listen to some really grounding music, maybe a body scan, and then reflect and share, something like that if I'm in a R.A.I.N partnership. This is one of the resources that you have. It's a 20-minute guided. So that's if you want to go deeper. I love that Rumi quote. I forgot it was up there. Don't turn away. Keep your gaze on the bandage place. That's where the light enters. Isn't that great? So there's also, this is a beautiful one. It's only 9 minutes. It's called Light Rain, which is also available to you. And books, if you're a book reader, Tara Brach's Radical Compassion is, elucidating. And she gives a free Radical Compassion guidebook for groups or if you're working with a R.A.I.N partner. And the Center for Positive Leadership has an umbrella for you. Today is another reminder. And it's actually raining today, so you might get to use it on your way to your car. So I do want you to know that I do teach in town. At the Earth and Spirit Center, I do have 2 basic courses. One I call Mindfulness for Real Life. It's a 5-week course, kind of intro. And then I also teach a follow-up class to refresh, sustain, and deepen your mindfulness. And we'll start those again in the first of the year. So the last closing practice is called I Wish You Well. And it is very simple. You just turn to somebody next to you, look them in the eye, and say, I wish you well. And then eye contact with somebody else, same thing. I wish you well. Somebody else, I wish you well. I wish you well. Thank you for your attention, for being here today. And I think we have about 1 minute left. If somebody would like to make a comment, ask a question, or just leave. Go, Remy.
No. Yeah, I'm going to close this out. Does anybody have comments, questions?
I did have a question. What was the name? It was Donna, but I did not write the title of the first poem. Be sure I wrote that.
Fowls, F-A-U-L-D-S. It's in your packet, I think. At the very beginning.
Yeah, we can pull it back up. Okay, while she pulls that back up, if you liked what you experienced today, we do this monthly. It's the 3rd Tuesday of every month. It's generally in this room. Next year in 2025, they're going to do this in some other rooms, which I'll keep you posted. But our next one is daily affirming feedback, and that's in January. We're skipping December because of the holidays. And then in February, we have Lockett sitting right here, and she's going to do a whole presentation on transition. Like what it means to transition.
So this will be the next one?
No, you'll be the second.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can find out about us really daily on LinkedIn. If you follow the Center for Positive Leadership on LinkedIn, that's where we announce everything. And all of these programming, all of our programming will be there as well. So with a QR code to get you to the site where you register. Am I forgetting anything else?
I wanted to make mention that you do have a business card. Let me know if you really like this. I'm teaching R.A.I.N at other classes, and I just thought the idea of having, take a picture of it, but have those 4 steps, and with reference to positive leadership. And this is printed by permission with Tara Brach. And then the other bookmark is like my business card. So if you wanted to reach me, that's my contact. And it's also a really stunning definition of resilience on there that Vivian and I have had lovely conversations about.